Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today I wanted to talk to you all about the different things that we can learn from millionaires and billionaires about how to become wealthy ourselves and use what they've used to become wealthy to benefit ourselves. So whether you like billionaires or not, or whether you think they're a scourge of the earth, or whether you think they're absolutely fantastic and the value they bring is really significant, there's no denying that people who have achieved billionaire status are doing something right on the financial front. Now, obviously, there are always exceptions to the rule, so some billionaires or some millionaires go out and spend way above what they should be doing. There are certain that I won't name, but they're the kings of Instagram that you might see, who spend everything they've got to try and promote an image or to try and get a certain liking and to get a certain following. But what we want to focus on is actually the billionaires and millionaires who gain their worth and remain true to their original values of how they got to that point. So good examples of this would be people like Warren Buffett or Bill Gates, who are people who've reached that billionaire status, but still maintain core values of frugality and being careful with spending. And these are things I'll go into more detail in. But essentially I want to break down the three key things that I think billionaires do really well that we could learn from. So that's how they generate wealth, their overall investing habits, and what I think is most important, and I'll come to at the end of the video, which is their spending habits and how they change depending on how much they have. So there's a few key things I want to talk to you about how billionaires generate wealth. So when it comes to generating wealth, billionaires are the kings and queens of this. They are the people who have achieved this greater than anyone else. They literally have the highest wealth of anyone on the planet. Now, how they do this is through a bunch of different means, but for the majority of the cases of billionaires, these are people who are business owners. So they are either founders or co-founders or the largest shareholders of some of the biggest corporations in the world. If you look at the most famous billionaires, if you look at Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, they're all founders or co-founders of very large companies which carry a huge amount of value, and the majority of their net worth actually comes from the shares that they own in those companies. Now, it's not necessary to become a billionaire to own huge shares in companies and to necessarily do it entirely through that route, but it is something to think about, which is that why are the majority of very high achieving millionaires and high achieving billionaires people who've started their own business or are at least large shareholders of different businesses? But aside from owning large businesses and having large shares in businesses, what are the other ways that billionaires generate wealth? Because after all, the thing that billionaires preach, and that most millionaires preach as well, is that you need to have a diverse income stream. It's the best way to increase your worth. So one way in which they do this is to use dividend investments. Now, I'll make a video that goes into further depth of exactly what a dividend investment is and how it works. But in essence, a dividend investment is an investment into a stock or a share of a company, which the company then rewards you with a certain percentage of the share that you have bought in, quarterly or annually, as a reward for being loyal to the company. Over time, if you accumulate large amounts of shares, then these can pay out quite significantly. So some of these pay out at around 3 or 4%, which means that if you have £100,000 invested in them, then that's an additional £4,000 per year that you get from this company completely for free, and it's completely independent of the stock value, which means that not only do you get the dividend return, but you also get the value of the stock increasing over time. The next thing that almost all billionaires and high achieving millionaires use to increase their wealth and to generate as much wealth as they can is real estate. It's very often thrown around that a real estate portfolio is something that will really launch you into the next step and will allow you to achieve massive amounts of wealth. And this is true only because real estate that you don't live in is an asset. So it's something that returns money to you, and that's a fantastic thing. So real estate can bring you money in so many different ways, whether it's through renting it out, whether it's through commercial businesses on that property, whether it's through developing properties and increasing the value of the property over time, whether it's through using it as an Airbnb. There are so many different methods of generating value and generating money through property investment that real estate is one of the cornerstones of growing a large wealth. And it's something that is preached by many, many people in the very successful percentiles. The other thing that billionaires do to generate wealth and to increase their wealth, especially true in the top 20 most valuable billionaires in the world, is that they embrace technology. So this is something that I think everybody can get on board with. I think most people out here, and especially people watching this video, obviously use YouTube, and they use as much technology as they can. We're always on our phones, or we're connected to TVs. We have social networks that allow us to connect to each other. And embracing new and up-and-coming technologies allows billionaires and millionaires to capitalize on what's available to them. So as a statistic, 16% of all of the billionaires in the world come from technology-based companies. And of the 20 most wealthy billionaires in the world, 9 of these are founders or co-founders of major tech companies. On top of this, billionaires are fantastic at generating wealth through innovation. It's something that I think everybody dreams of, that $1 million idea, that original thing that will drive them to financial success. And it's something that I think we should all focus on trying to improve, is improving our innovation. Now for me, what that means is focusing on creative skills and focusing on my knowledge. So I like to read as much as I can about different topics that I'm interested in, because it's only by understanding what is out there in the current market is how you can identify the potential holes in the market that you could fill with an innovative product. So that's something that I think is key to focus on, is how you can improve your innovation and how you might be able to make those innovative products come to life. So next we come to the investing habits of the wealthy. So the most important thing that I have heard over and over and over again is that the most important investment you can make is in yourself. So this is completely taking out of the picture the idea of investing in property or investing in the stock market. This is completely taking those things to the side and actually saying that the most important thing you can invest in is yourself. Because at the end of the day, the thing that you have most control over in this world is yourself. You can control your actions, you can control your thoughts, you can control what you do on each day, and you can use those days productively or unproductively. So you are your own greatest asset, and I think the best thing you can do to invest in yourself is to really improve your knowledge and to make the most of your time, because time is the most valuable asset that you have other than yourself. On top of that, I think something that comes hand in hand with investing in yourself is focusing on self-growth, which is something I've spoken about before. But I think taking time to meditate and to relax and to really let your brain digest and come to terms with the past week or the past year. But aside from investing in yourself, what can you do? Well, one thing you can do is to invest regularly and consistently. So this is something that billionaires and millionaires stick to. Their portfolios are always diversifying and changing over time, but it's always a consistent change. It's sticking to an investment and not just throwing everything in one go and then hoping that it goes for the best. So if you can consistently invest into something over time and use compound interest to your advantage, then that's something that's hugely important and is actually one of the key pillars of becoming financially successful. So one way that you could action this is to actually break down exactly how much money you want to invest and to start figuring out ways that you could put that money in regularly or more regularly than you currently do to maximize the growth of your own profits. Another thing that the large majority of billionaires and millionaires do is to research every investment and decision that they make. We sometimes rush into decisions because we are quite headstrong, but actually taking that time to slow things down and meticulously plan through exactly what it is you want to do is something that's significant, that brings much more value than just rushing into something without really planning. Now, of course, it's very easy to get carried away in the media hype. For example, if you look at the moment in the media and Tesla stock is soaring, you might think to go headstrong and immediately buy as much as you can, because maybe it will keep rising. But if you take the time to do the analysis and work out whether it is worth investing or not, then not only will you potentially profit more in the long term, but you also massively reduce your risk of loss, which is something that's really important if you want to generate wealth, is that you want to reduce the risk of loss as much as possible. Now that's not saying don't take risks, that's almost the complete opposite. It's take risks so long as they are justified and you've done the calculation. If you've researched something and you've come up with an answer and you think this stock will work fantastically, or this business idea is brilliant and I think it will work, so long as you've done the research and the research points to that being a success, if it fails, then that's not a loss in a massive sense. There is a loss, of course, that you may lose some money in the process, but the method behind the process was correct. And so it's something that you should stick to, because when that method is eventually successful, the reward will be significantly greater than just jumping into things without planning. And finally, and most importantly, I think, is the spending habits. So these are the areas where you look at people like Warren Buffett and you realize just how frugal they really are. So when it comes to building wealth, there are two games you can play. There's the strategy of offense and the strategy of defense. So strategy of offense is generating as much wealth as you can and increasing your income rapidly. Whereas defense is essentially how you save your money, so how you budget to reduce your expenditure. And this is something that is much, much easier to control because it's the things you do at home and the actions that you take that can be quickly resolved. So for example, reducing your rental price, or reducing your mortgage costs, or reducing how much you spend on clothes or food shopping or eating and dining out. All of these things over time, not only do they reduce your bills, but they also build a habit. And a habit of frugality is fantastic because it means that when you do start generating more income, your expenses stay along the same line. And when your expenses stay on the same line whilst your income is increasing, then that's when the real scales of economy of growing and increasing your net worth will come in. So coming back to the point of frugality, this is entirely to do with your defense. So this is reducing your spending. Now, many billionaires and many millionaires are actually incredibly frugal people. So if you look at Warren Buffett or Bill Gates, for example, they never go out. You don't see them in fancy suits or expensive cars or luxury mansions. You see them in reasonable houses or reasonable clothing, but they're never going out and flexing how much money they have, which is something that comes in hand with social media these days, which is that as soon as people have money, they want to show off that they have money. But actually, the really rich don't need to show off that they have money. So to add to frugality and reducing your spending is another thing that billionaires and millionaires have in common, which is that they get the absolute most value out of everything they can. And that includes using as many free things as they can in their local community. So whether it's libraries or parks, you can save money left, right and centre if you plan your day around going to free activities and free entertainment. So instead of going to the movies and watching a film, you could instead go to the library and borrow a DVD for free and then watch that at home. Or you could go to the park and have a day out in the park and enjoy the park instead of paying to go, for example, to a theme park. So making the most of your local community and all the free things that are available to you is another way that you can be frugal, and is a habit that you can take from billionaires and millionaires that will actually help you. In order to be frugal, there is one key thing you have to do, and that is to stick to a budget. I think that is one thing that is incredibly important, is to make a budget of your monthly expenses and to log what your actual expenses are versus that theoretical budget, and compare the two, and to make sure that you are adjusting and modifying your budget to be in line with those. I know lots of people who make budgets with all the right intentions, with the plan of reducing their spending and increasing their saving. But the issue is that these same people don't then hold themselves to the budget and don't report exactly what they're spending against their budget. Now the issue with this is it means that a lot of spending goes under the radar. £5 here for a coffee or £10 here for a beer in London is something that will really, really eat away at your budget and will quickly put you into a dangerous position where you can't make any savings. So making a budget and sticking to it is really important. And in fact, Warren Buffett recommends that if you're saving for anything, you should budget down to the cent, so down to the individual penny of what you are trying to save for, to make sure you can maximize your savings, and then to make sure that you track those savings as long as you can. Now these next 2 points are the 2 most important things you can do with spending, and I think they are most important once you've started generating some wealth and you're looking for ways to invest safely and invest for the maximum return. So the first of these is to use corporations. Now this is something that is stressed massively in the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it's something that I think is actually incredibly interesting and I'm doing a lot of research on at the minute. But essentially, if you're generating income through other assets such as real estate or dividends investments, then you can run these through a corporation, and corporations have massive tax gains versus your regular worker. So if you're buying real estate and you're using that and renting it out and you're making profit from this and you ran that through a corporation, then useful things that you can do is you can use things like loss relief. So if you ever make a loss, you can write off that loss against future profits to reduce your tax bill. Then other things you can do is you can use tax deductible business expenses. So say for example you're running a YouTube channel or you're running your business from home, then your home becomes your workspace and you can start writing off percentages of those workspaces as tax deductible expenses. Again, on top of that, if a YouTuber upgrades their camera or upgrades their microphone and they're using these things as business expenses, then these can be tax deductible. Now the next thing that's really significant when it comes to spending habits is paying for tax advice and financial advice. Now, typically, a lot of people will actually pick the cheapest option when it comes to financial advice, saying that all financial advisors basically know the same thing and it's just the fares that vary. But using the evidence of what financial advisors know is something that's significantly more important in getting the most wealth out of your investment as possible. So millionaires and billionaires, of course, they have more money than most of us. They advise that you spend more on tax advice and financial advice than actually you think you should, because these things are things that put cash directly back in your pocket at the end of the day. If you can reduce your tax bill, or if you can improve the quality of your investments, then the extra cost of a better tax advisor or financial advisor is justified. So those are the main things that I think you could learn from millionaires and billionaires when it comes to generating wealth, investing, and spending. And these are key things that I think actually do apply to everyday people, even when we don't have millions or billions to be spending. So I hope you learned something, and I hope that this might change your mind on how you think or perceive billionaires, and it might actually give you an understanding of how we can learn from billionaires to make ourselves more financially successful. If you did like the video, please hit the like button down below, subscribe if you are new around here, and leave a comment letting me know what you want to see in future or any feedback that you have for me, and I'll see you in the next video.